I think we'll go ahead and get started. I am hearing my voice over the projection system here, so I think we're doing okay from an audio perspective. Welcome to PyData Virginia 2025. I'm Patrick Harrison. I work as an independent data science consultant, and I'm one of the organizers for PyData Virginia. I'd like to kick things off here by telling you a little bit about NumFOCUS, which might be the most important organization in open source that you've never heard of. NumFOCUS provides critical organizational, financial, and legal support for many of the foundational open source software projects that data scientists, data engineers, and researchers use every day. So if you've used projects or heard of projects like NumPy or Pandas or scikit-learn or SciPy or the Conda package manager, or you use any other tools or frameworks that rely on these, you are using some of the foundational software packages that NumFOCUS supports. One of the many things that NumFOCUS does is it runs this program called PyData, and just as an aside, the top and bottom of the slides here are getting cut off a little bit, so sorry, the headers are going to be cut off. Bear with me here. NumFOCUS runs a program called PyData, and PyData is a community and a conference series for data scientists, data engineers, researchers, and data enthusiasts and developers of data analysis tools to come together and learn from each other and share ideas. There are hundreds of local PyData chapters in cities all over the world, and there's a series of major PyData conferences that are also held around the world. And the PyData conferences are usually held in major tech hubs like New York or Seattle or London or Berlin or places like that. So you might ask, why are we having one in Charlottesville in Virginia? Last year, our partners at NumFOCUS approached me about starting a new PyData conference on the East Coast. And I said, yes, but we'll do it in Charlottesville. And they said, really? Are you sure? And they were understandably a little bit nervous about organizing a PyData conference in a small city that I don't think any of the NumFOCUS staff had ever been to, let alone having hosted an event before. And to their credit, they took a chance on Charlottesville and they said yes, and here we are today. And the reason that I wanted to host the event here in Charlottesville is because I know that Virginia broadly, and Charlottesville especially, has a world-class data science, technology, and entrepreneurial community. And I thought that hosting an event like this would be an amazing way to share that with the world. And if you take one thing from the event today, I'd like it to be that. And that means that if you already live here and you're interested in pursuing a career in data science or AI, you don't need to move to a distant city to build a serious career and have world-class peers. You can already do that right here. If you're joining us today from one of those distant cities, you should know that it's possible to participate in a high-powered data science and tech community while enjoying the beautiful surroundings, amazing quality of life, and lower cost of living that Charlottesville provides. You can start a business here, or you can move a business here, and you'll find a deep well of data science and AI talent ready to make things happen. I know one of our sponsors for this event moved their headquarters last year from Silicon Valley to Charlottesville to be a part of this community and participate here. And if you do start a company here or move a company here, please do reach out because I'd love to do business with you. So there are a few logistical notes that I'd like to go over, which are going to be challenging with the headers and the footers here cut off. So there's a giant mystery QR code. I promise it's not a phishing attack. This is the schedule for the conference. If you just go to the conference website as well, you'll find it there. Today, for the keynote, we're all going to be here in the same session. After this, we're going to have 3 tracks running concurrently in 3 separate theaters all day long. This is the PyData Virginia Discord channel. We have a channel on the Discord messaging service that's meant for conference attendees to be able to connect and find one another and coordinate plans. So if you'd like to connect with other people who are here at PyData Virginia, I'd encourage you to sign up and join this Discord channel and start chatting in there, particularly for after the event, if you wanted to coordinate plans to get dinner or go out and enjoy the many bars and restaurants and attractions that Charlottesville has with other folks here at PyData Virginia. This would be a good way to do it. The Wi-Fi here at the Violet Crown, the theater is, the network is VCC Guest. The password is Violet Crown. This is a 2-day conference. That title up there says Saturday venue. The second day of the conference is not here. So if you come back here tomorrow, you might be able to see the Minecraft movie, but you won't see the PyData Virginia tutorials. Those are going to be hosted at the UVA Darden School of Business, which is that beautiful building right there over on the UVA grounds. Thank you again to UVA Darden for supporting PyData Virginia and hosting our tutorials. We've got lightning talks as part of the program. Lightning talks will be here in Theater 5 after lunch. Lightning talks are going to be a rapid-fire series of back-to-back 5-minute talks. So those are going to be pretty fun. I'm sure there'll be an eclectic mix of topics that people will be presenting about. After the conference today, there's an event called the Downtown Mall Block Party, which is a big event organized by the Tom Tom Festival that is a huge street festival right outside the theater. So after the event today, particularly if you're coming in from out of town and you've never experienced the Tom Tom Block Party before, you're not going to be able to miss it. But I'd encourage you to go out and participate in all the festivities that are happening there. And using the conference Discord channel would be a great way to coordinate plans for the block party with other people here at the conference. PyData events have a robust code of conduct, and we expect everybody to show respect and courtesy to other attendees throughout the conference, and we're committed to creating a professional, productive, and inclusive environment for anyone. If anything happens at the conference that you think might run afoul of our code of conduct, please reach out to one of our code of conduct team members, which are Tamara Youngblood, who's around here somewhere. She's NumFOCUS staff. Patricia Rameau, same thing, or me, Patrick Harrison. There's also, if you go to the PyData Virginia website, there's an opportunity to privately report a code of conduct incident online. I'd like to say thank you to our sponsors. This is a big spread of sponsors that's been even more zoomed in on the movie screen here, but the Quantitative Foundation, the Lacrosse AI Institute at the Darden School of Business, S&P Global, Singlestone, General Atomics, CCRI, Elder Research, Data Shapes AI, Quantitative Investment Management, Castle Hill Gaming, Redis, Domino, and Data Theoretic, which is my consulting business. Without the financial support of organizations like this, an event like PyData Virginia would not be possible. So thank you again to all of these organizations for supporting the event and letting us do this. I'd also like to thank the NumFOCUS events team, Tamara Youngblood, Patricia Rameau, and Jim Weiss for taking a chance on Charlottesville and helping us make this event happen. And I'd also like to thank all of our all-volunteer Virginia-based organizing committee for their contributions to making the event happen too. And that is Reggie Leonard, Renee Teat, Alec Goss, Carrie Guerrero, Zach Brown, Katya Mastropas, Michael Holroyd, and Samantha Towett. So thank you all for your contributions. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote and a very imposing headshot right here on a giant screen, Rajkumar Venkatesan. Rajkumar is a professor of business administration and the co-director of the Lacrosse AI Institute for Ethical AI and Business at the University of Virginia's Darden School of Business. He has taught quantitative digital marketing to MBA and executive education students worldwide. He's written extensively about data analytics and AI in business, including authoring several books, and his work has appeared in many leading business journals. More than 450,000 individuals have participated in his online courses on Coursera, and he's consulted with a wide variety of organizations from large enterprises to startups in technology, retail, media, industrial goods, financial services, and the life sciences industries. And today he'll be telling us a little bit about building AI-first organizations. So welcome, Raj.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Patrick, for the kind introduction and for bringing the PyData conference to Charlottesville and for the world to see what an amazing community we have here in Charlottesville. And I'm honored to be speaking with you today about my research on building AI capabilities in organizations. So I teach strategy and marketing, so my talk is probably the least technical of the talks you will have in this entire conference. So think of me as an appetizer for the rest of the real technical talks that are going to be coming. So I'm going to share with you my research on and work I have done with executives and leaders of organizations as to how they are looking at AI, and think of this as a view from the business side of the organizations and people who are in the C-suite. So I want to start again. This is not cut out too much. So this is with Fei-Fei Li, is one of the premier data scientists and the leader in AI, and how she thinks about what we are experiencing today. It is fortunate for us to be living through really a revolution, and AI is fueling that revolution. And as people who are as part of this AI community, you're really changing the world as we are speaking today. At the same time, if you look at businesses and leaders of organizations, they're still trying to find out what to do with this AI. They've probably read it in the Wall Street Journal, and they're saying AI is big, or heard on a podcast, and they're coming to their organizations and saying, what's our AI strategy? What are we going to be doing? You've probably heard some of that. And even with surveys, this was done by Conference Board last year, and they're still exploring options. Majority are exploring options, and some don't plan to adopt. And if you ask for what is the main barrier to adoption, this was a McKinsey survey, and I've just taken the top 3 factors that CEOs mentioned as barriers to adoption. The top 2 are lack of strategy and skill gap. Right? What skills are necessary for this versus what skills the organizations have. So if you are in the skill, if you have an AI skill, then you are in high demand, and as you all already know. Right? And so these are the main challenges. On top of the skill gap, it is the lack of a strategy on how do we build an AI-first organization. And that's what I said. For example, what are the challenges now? So this was an example of McDonald's made a $300 million deal to buy an AI technology company. It's a big money, right? And what they wanted to do was make the drive-through like Amazon. So if you're driving through the McDonald's drive-through, and it will customize the screen and also make suggestions for you. If you're wondering, well, I have not seen this, it's because it failed. There is a failure of McDonald's on the top that you're not able to see, but it failed. It should have been like this failure. Bang! Like if I was like Wes Anderson, I would have done that, but feel like this is all we have now. So a big giant M. But it failed because it was suggesting bacon on ice cream and stuff like that. And you know, it might be good, you know, you don't know till you try it. And it was making errors, and as you can see with, you know, if it may be good 90% of the time, but 10% of the time if it's making errors, and that 10% matters. And so McDonald's famously abandoned their AI project after spending $300 million. So it's not failures always. At the same time, within the same industry, Taco Bell bought Quantum, an AI company, for about the same money, and they claim in Wall Street a few months back, they claim success with this strategy. And they're using it for email customization, building better operations within the store, and other aspects like this, but they are finding success with their AI implementation. So that's what intrigued me to understand what makes some people successful and what makes some failures, especially when you're investing so much to build these capabilities. And that's what we set out to do in our book, which the second edition is coming out later this fall, on how companies build AI capabilities. Because I'm a marketing professor, that kind of is my lens through which I look at the world. I look at the world through the lens of customers. But some of the learnings from this are applicable across functional domains as well. And these are some of the brands we talked to, and this was qualitative research that we did with multiple brands across different industries and worldwide to see how they are experiencing this journey of building AI capabilities. And the first thing we learned was that you want to start classifying the AI investments in terms of whether they are internal or external, external in the sense facing the customers, and whether they're improving your current productivity or are they creating new markets and growing your customer base. And typically what we see is companies are seeing much more success in box one, where it is efficiency building internal projects. Also because it's easier to measure the return on that investment. So that's the other main thing we want to think about when you think about companies implementing AI, is they look at it as how much return am I getting for the investments, like the 300 million I invested. Right? The model may be accurate, it may be performing better than the benchmark, but if it is not returning on the investment, then it's still considered a failure. Right? So the biggest challenge, biggest benefits people are seeing is in box one, and of course the biggest returns they will see are in box four. If you're addressing customers and it's new customers and you're growing the customer base. But that's also the riskiest and the difficult one to do. So people take like the snake and ladder, either 1, 3, 4 or 1, 2, 4 paths. Right? And what is the ultimate goal of this? The ultimate goal is to use data and algorithms to personalize all aspects of your customer engagement. And we define engagement as acquisition, growth, retention, and advocacy, or building a customer community. So if this is the goal, so if you're looking at how do we make our AI projects relevant, it's about connecting what you're doing to how it is going to affect your customers, and what aspects of the customer journey and customer life cycle are we influencing and making it more personalized for them. And how do companies achieve these goals? There is a 5-step process. I'm just presenting this process as a canvas as to how we see companies progress. I'm not going to go into the details of this canvas today. I'm going to go into how, what are some of the challenges they have faced as they go through this maturity curve. Right? You start with the foundation. A good data is important to build all the AI, experimentation, expansion, transformation, and monetization. So you have these 5 steps through which companies normally go through the maturity curve. The key to all of this, how is the 4 questions companies always ask about building AI in organizations. The 4 questions are: what about data? Is it still valuable? What about privacy? What about us? What about humans? And what is the role of ethics, and how do we make it ethical? Right? So those are the 4 questions I want to address from my perspective and my research on these 4 questions. So the first one, is data still an asset? Yes. Yes. I knew I would get that answer. So let me tell the reason why. Right? If you think about foundational models, it's taking $100 million to make. Right? And only a few companies can afford it, hundreds of millions of dollars. But if you're taking fine-tuning a model, it takes a few thousands of dollars. And So this is from Gartner. They're talking about how small task-specific AI is the next wave. Foundational models are with some few companies, and there's a lot of consolidation. Even though there is open source with them, training foundational models is not easy, and it costs a lot. So you're looking at task-specific models that provide quicker responses and use less computational power, reducing your operational maintenance costs. This is really important. But what is the main ingredient for foundational models? Data. And it's not just for foundational models and for fine-tuning, it is data. And data that is unique, right? And you can see the battle around data playing out in the open, with Reddit making deals with OpenAI for OpenAI to use its data, and at the same time, New York Times blocking them from blocking OpenAI and LLMs from using its data. So there is a lot of attention paid to what data is used to train these algorithms. And you also see the whole field of data attribution coming up because of privacy reasons, as well as for these reasons, to see which data is influential in giving the predicted output. Right? What edge cases are valuable in giving outputs. And so what we call it as the data advantage. And typically in businesses, we talk about network effects. That is, if more people are using the telephone, the value of the telephone for everybody goes up. Right? So that's the network effects. So the number of users go up, you get more value from that network. Think of LinkedIn. As more people are on LinkedIn, you get more value from LinkedIn. But what LinkedIn can also do is use that data and use algorithms for customizing LinkedIn for each user, and providing, if you're a recruiter, finding you the right candidates, or if you're looking for jobs, finding you the right jobs. All of that is powered by data and algorithms. And as you have more users, these users also generate data. And that data is going to give you an extra advantage on top of network effects. That's what we call as the data advantage. And companies can realize this. In addition to just adding more accuracy into the models, it is now going to create more value for your consumers as well, if you can take that and customize and personalize your products for the customers. And so the McKinsey also recognizes this as leveraging fine-tuned foundational models that have been fed into additional relevant data is the main wave of the future. Right? So treat data as a strategic asset. Right? That is the key thing here. And if you look about learnings, the first is, yes, data is king, but what is the corollary for that? The corollary is data engineering is critical. You all know it takes 80%, 90% of the work on data engineering, but that is critical. How you have the features defined and all of that. A lot of times projects fail because they don't look at this. They look at the newfound algorithm at the expense of the data. Now, what about privacy regulations? Will that hurt? Maybe, maybe not, right? But and companies are acquiring AI technology. One of the main ways, as we talked about earlier, that people bring in AI into organizations is by buying companies, including the big ones, right? But at the same time, there are concerns about privacy regulations, because AI uses a lot of data about customer data, and there are concerns whether this data is violating consumer privacy, whether it fits with regulations. GDPR was the famous one in Europe. There is a lot now in the US as well, in California and Virginia and New York. So what we set out to do was to see whether what happens when privacy regulations are there, what happens to the economy, how much do people invest in AI technology, and what kind of AI technology actually is working when there are regulations. So we looked at before GDPR about 5 years and post GDPR. And we looked at valuation of tech companies, valuation of technologies. So this is using PitchBook. We looked at how much companies were bought for on average. So what you're seeing here is the dark blue graphs are the control group where it was no GDPR, the acquisition was not exposed to GDPR. And on the light blue, the acquisitions were all exposed to GDPR. And you can see after GDPR, the average deal size goes down from $78 million to $58 million. So GDPR has reduced how much the valuations of companies are in Europe. Right? Now, there is a silver lining in there. We coded these acquisitions in terms of their objectives. And among the acquisitions that were exposed to GDPR, if they were focused on customers and delivering customer value, if they had explicitly talked about that in their acquisition announcement, you see that the valuations are the same. They don't go down. Right? So there is a silver lining that privacy regulations are actually valuable to companies who are focused on customer needs and customer benefits. We also ran a lab experiment where we saw that if consumers were told that there are privacy regulations that will protect their data, they're willing to share their data more, and they're trusting the brand and find the brand reliable and dependable. So trust is important when you have privacy regulations, right? And developing that trust, and privacy regulations can actually help build trust between you, between the brand and the consumers. Right? So the learning is to focus on customer needs when you're building your AI capabilities. So privacy regulations will pay off for customer-centric firms, which implies you need to focus on customer benefits versus features. Right? So the key here is to look at an outside-in perspective rather than just looking at the features of the model. You're considering whether this feature is going to help the customer and what benefits does it provide. And that also develops the trust with the customers. Now, big question, what about humans? Are we still going to have a job? No. So the trust deficit, but there is a trust deficit. Just as we talked about people want to develop trust with AI, there is a trust deficit with AI. Consumers don't want to use an AI chatbot for routine medical questions, and they don't want the federal government using AI. Just letting you know. At the same time, this was a Pew Research that was done on how would you feel if your healthcare provider relied on AI? 60% uncomfortable. Would using AI for medical healthcare lead to better outcomes? Only about 50% are saying yes. A lot are still saying worse. So people are not yet sure about using AI for critical things like healthcare or emotional support. Another survey finds that US adults who say they would use surgical robots, about 59% say no. Mental health support, 79% don't want AI for mental health support. Right? So as we talk about AI and the growth in AI and all the potential that AI has, we should also look at, will people use it? What are the barriers to adoption? Right? And the barriers to adoption, again, I had a nice little title up there. It was called algorithm aversion. This is something that researchers have found a lot in behavioral economics, called consumers have an aversion to using recommendations that are based on algorithms. They think that you're just one part of a many number that is not personalized for you. Although they personalize it, they're meant to personalize. Consumers don't think of it that way. So there is algorithm aversion. So how do you build trust? You build trust by looking at these 4 factors of building trust in AI. Right? The first is people are more willing to give data if it is a utilitarian product, like buying a lawnmower. For some it may be hedonic, but I know you can think of it as utilitarian. But if you're music or ice cream or hedonic products, people are less willing to give data. So understanding the product category in which you are is important. If you're transparent about the need, why you're using it, and transparent that it is AI that you're using for recommendations, the trust builds much more. At the same time, people have less tolerance for failure from AI. We may be more tolerant about humans failing, but we are less tolerant about AI failing. All the self-driving car accidents that we hear in the news, think about that. There are more accidents caused by humans, but the few that are caused by self-driving cars or self-driving vehicles get much more attention because we are much more intolerant of failures from AI. And there is social proof is important. If you show that your referrals are valuable, telling that others have used it and found it valuable improves trust with AI. So you need to think about these 4 factors when you're deploying. Even when you're deploying AI, think of this as deploying AI within organizations as well, not just consumers. Right? If you treat as your employees who are using AI as your customers, these 4 factors are important in understanding adoption among them. Right? So humans can make AI better. Right? There is a collaboration between humans that are necessary, so we can breathe a little better that we are still relevant. Okay? We still will have a job. So don't forget the humans and design the AI interface for adoption of the products. Right? So that is clearly important here, is the human-machine interface and design of AI is as important as the accuracy of the model is. Right? And finally, what about the ethical view of AI? So there's a lot of talk about this. There are a lot of conversations around how AI can be more ethical. I'm not claiming to be an ethics expert, but the way we think about it, I'm just going to give our perspective on how we think about ethics in AI. And again, the same idea about how do we build trust with this system. Right? To think about that, you want to think about this as a value chain. All right? So think the whole data science process, what are all the different steps? You need an infrastructure to build these models. You need measurement and data. You need models and training. You want to implement the models, and you want to monitor the outcomes and improve the models. Along all of these tracks, there are people who are enabling each one of this. Right? And if you think about how much money is in each value chain, this is what we call as the value chain of AI. Right? And how much money is in each domain. The top gives you the dollar amount approximately in 2027 estimated revenue from different publications. And you can see that the total infrastructure is where most of the economy is. Right? And then it is about applications and implementations. And where you have opportunity is much more on applications and on the monitoring and outcome side, because the rest are more consolidated. The infrastructure and measurement of data side is more consolidated. The reason I'm showing this is you want to think about a whole system. You want to think about the whole value chain of AI when you're building these models. Right? And you want to think about risks in these each of these value chains. There are risks about the data, is it safe? There are risks about whether the model is accurate or is there bias, and there is a trade-off between accuracy and bias. There is a risk around ownership of the data. Whose data are we using? Do we have the right permissions to use that data? And there is a risk about misinformation. Right? So there is about how the AI can actually lead to misinformation. Right? All of these risks are what leaders are looking at when they are considering AI across their value chain. Right? So what we want is to then look at ethics across each step of the value chain. When you think about ethics only at the end over here in terms of the outcomes, or here in terms of managing and monitoring outcomes, or in the applications, it's too late. It starts from every step of the value chain, from infrastructure to measurement, models, all the way up to managing the AI systems. Understanding these risks at every step of the value chain enables reduces the chance that that increases the chance of being more ethical, right, and reduces the chance that you're caught in some ethical issue with your models, or that your model is not inclusive or is biased, right? So you need a systems view for AI. And the biggest challenge with ethics in AI is that we think of these as different pockets of implementations rather than a systems perspective, right? Because some things that go wrong, you may fix a data problem, but then have a application issue, or you fix the application issue, but the issue was in the data. So leaders who can look at it as a system and as a value chain reduce the chances of having issues with your implementations, right? So the systems thinking is important, where you're looking at your beyond the models, both on the left and the right, that you need to look at the data that feeds into the model and what kind of applications they have, right? So adopt a value chain perspective for ethical AI, and corollary is infuse ethics in all steps of the AI development process, right? And that is the challenge with this is, and when we think about skills gap, it's not only in the technical knowledge, it is also in these kind of perspectives on the systems thinking, and also how every member of your organization is able to think about ethics in the work that they are doing, right? So my 4 insights on how to build AI first organizations is: data is still king, customer focus can overcome concerns about privacy, design is important to building trust with AI. Don't forget that AI is helping humans, and that you need this human machine interface to help with design, and adopt a value chain perspective for ethical AI, right? So what does it mean for if you're building these models? What do these insights about business imply for building AI models? Data engineering is critical. Focus on customer benefits versus needs. Design of AI is important, and infuse ethics in all steps of the development process. So if there's one thing maybe you can take from my talk today is think about who the end user is. Design for the end user, right? And that is really important in terms of taking the AI beyond the labs into application deployment and scaling, right? So that's what I have for you today. I'm open to questions. I think we have about 10 minutes for questions, and yeah, we're happy to take any questions that you might have.
We do have, so thanks again. We do have plenty of time for Q&A. I think this microphone might be off right now, but that's okay. So I don't think we have excellent, thank you. I don't think we have a mic to run to people asking questions, but if you want to ask a question, let me know. I'll repeat it here on the microphone for the room, and then we'll hand it to Raj. So any questions from the audience? So one question that I had to get things kicked off, when people think about AI and the impact of AI in business, a lot of the time it comes back to jobs and how will this affect jobs, and how many is it going to reduce the number of jobs? And if you look historically, often major new technology developments cause a temporary disruption and then end up creating more jobs than they disrupt in the longer term. And do you think that we'll follow that same pattern this time, or is it different this time somehow?
Absolutely, the great question. And I mean, it's hard to predict. Whenever you predict something, that's the first thing that doesn't happen. But if you think about what happened in the past, absolutely, right? Even from the printing press to now, new jobs have been created. And you can think of these 4 insights on AI development as the skills that you need, the new skills that will come up, Right? Think about data engineering. How do you maintain data? How do you value data? How do you know which data is valuable into building the model? How do you develop a capability and a skill on understanding customer benefits and translating them into AI models? Right? How do you understand the design of your AI systems to build trust? And how do you how do you have the skills to understand the ethical implications of your AI implementations across the value chain? So I would recommend these four as also skills that future professionals would need to have in addition to the skills about model building. Right? That these would be, in at least based on what we're seeing as, if these are the barriers to adoption and this needs to be fixed to adopt. So people who have these skills are also going to be the ones who are going to be in demand, and the new kind of skills that are necessary for the next wave of the industry to be there. So I would say, I guess what I'm trying to say is, yes, we will have jobs. I think, at least I'm an optimist that way. As although Terminator next, there might be Terminator 4 that might run in this theater and say it's all doomed. But and you can see that, like, at the moment there are still things that are that humans are necessary in the loop in terms of deploying the models, adopting the models, scaling the models, and we are still at the very, very early stages of adoption of AI in the mass market.
We'll see if the Violet Crown can queue up some dystopian AI films right after the conference. Yes, question.
Hey, great presentation. I don't know
Thank
if you
you.
can hear me or not.
I can hear you. Yes, you're.
It seems like 3 out of these 4, like the top 3, you're engineering, you're analyzing benefits, right? You're designing AI
Yes.
features. All right, the 4th one, this is more like injecting philosophy into your development process, right?
Yes.
Are there examples that you can think of that are companies that are doing that really well? Is it about a cultural kind of ethos from the top down? Like, can you just
Yes. On the last one.
So the
infusing ethics into
Yes.
AI?
So the question, if I can paraphrase, are there good examples of companies that are doing this well, infusing ethics in all steps of AI development, and what are some examples of how that works in practice?
Great question. I think in terms of, I would say you want to think about customer firms that have a clear purpose. It cannot be top down. You cannot sit and say we are going to be ethical. No one is going to say the other, that we're going to be unethical, right? No one says that. Right? But they're going to say, like, you will have firms saying we're going to do the right thing, we're going to be ethical. But I think that's great, but that alone doesn't help. It has to be a whole cultural thing. And what I have seen is firms that have a strong purpose, that everybody understands their what they're trying to do and what value they're creating for whom. I think they tend to have cultures where everyone is able to think about this, everyone in any job that they're doing, and that's why you look at the value chain, right? That anyone in the company is understanding about the different challenges and are also able to speak up and discuss about these issues. The examples are difficult mainly because when things go well, it doesn't become news. It becomes news when when things don't go well. So there are a lot of examples of companies that have messed this up or have been caught unaware of what they have. And that's where, if you think about how did it happen, that nobody talked about it, right? It's because there was a culture where people were just passing the buck to the next person. And that's what we mean as infuse. And it has to be when you have a strong purpose and clear purpose that everybody knows, then you would have a much more stronger sense of this. Okay?
Yes, question.
Yeah, so first off, great talk.
Thank you.
That as an unbiased data engineer.
The first one. You have a job, man. Yes.
and internal versus external.
Uh-huh.
You had an item there that was optimized strategy and I believe internal growth. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is and how, as practitioners, we can help lead those conversations?
So the
Yes.
question is for this grid right here in the internal growth segment, optimized strategies, elaborating on that a little bit, and how can practitioners do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So again, a lot of my examples ends up being marketing because I teach that, and but it so happens that it's the biggest consumer of data and AI. So efficient workflows would be one of the things that's happening is digitizing the entire process, so that you can start having more efficiencies and less wastage in the process, and that happens even in when you're building campaigns. The objective of the campaign, the segmentation, all of that is digitized, and that's what Adobe is trying to do with its platform now. The second would be, once you do that and you learn from it, you can start creating campaigns on the fly that are customized, right? So that ends up being like Taco Bell is trying to do that now, where emails are customized on the fly. That would be optimized strategy, but it is growth because this is things that you have not done before, that you are now able to do because you have digitized your workflow, right? And so what you can do from this is, once you understand what new data is being created by the digitization of the workflow, that will give you ideas of new opportunities. And if you can understand like where to connect to these, that tells you opportunities for models that would then become attractive.
Yes, right here. Yes. It's yes, you, but we'll get to everyone. Mhm.
Perfect. So I've been, I was your student, so you probably know all of this, but I've been deploying AI for over 20 years, much dumber versions of AI and way clunkier than what we have right now. And what it's very different for me is how well known it is today and how everybody kind of like touches and uses AI, as opposed to 20 years ago when it was just like, the nerds. We were the only ones doing it. And how has that impacted or changed the customer perception of AI and what they're willing or able to do?
Great question.
So to try to paraphrase that, that's a how does the increased visibility of AI and the greater number of people who are working with AI every day, how is that changing what practitioners are trying to do? How things
Or what are the customer perceptions?
Oh, what are the customer
What are
perceptions?
willing to do with AI?
Yeah, maybe if the customer themselves has some experience working with AI tools.
So I think it's a tale of two cities there, right? Because at the one end, and also I think it's generational, because on the one hand there's more receptivity that everything is AI, at the same time there's a trust deficit, and there's a fear that the companies know too much about me, right? And so there is it's this paradox that is there always, and for me that's where I think focusing on this, that understanding algorithm aversion, that people have an aversion to taking recommendations from models and from algorithms, and this awareness of AI has heightened that, because now they see this as a model doesn't understand who I am, although it's, if you think about it, that's very wrong, because the model is the one that understands well about who you are than humans can. But our perception is that that doesn't understand because I'm one in a million, but a human understands me personally, right? So I think there is going to be, this is going to be really important for that, right? And understanding how you can build trust with the system. And the tolerance for failure is also high, because one example I can say, within organizations, one company implemented AI for converting like text to SQL, right? AI within the organization. They built their own LLM. And they had to stop it after the pilot because the employees were used to OpenAI or Google, Gemini, and all of that, that it answers everything and it has to be at that level. And they wanted it to do anything and everything. Whereas these guys were focused on building it just for a specific purpose. And so the consumer expectations have gone like super high, where they want AI to be doing everything, and it knows if it is going to be perfect. So any failures that come are very, like, people are very sensitive to those failures. So I think the tolerance for failure is something you'll have to work on, and also that is related to the trust in terms of how much data is it using. If you think about, like, we think Alexa or Google Home is listening to us, but maybe not, who knows. But you can say that based on your actions and a smart algorithm, it can predict, it can look as if it is listening to you, but it can predict. So we have those challenges as well. So I would say it's both helping and hurting this extra attention people have on AI.
All right, we have time for maybe two more. Way in the back.
So for fun, after 30 years of profit motive with the public internet, what we appear to have achieved is the erosion of trust in education, science, and each other. So I guess my question is, at the fundamental level, why should we believe that more of the same will make anything better?
Great. Patrick, you want to repeat that question? Thank you. That was like, that was an easy question.
Yes. How to paraphrase that one? Will more of the same make anything better?
Yes. Great. So I have one story for this. So when the printing press came, this is a story that Yuval Hariri has in his new book, and I'm just re-quoting that story. I found it very relevant. Is when the printing press came, the first thing that came out of it that was the hit was the Salem witch hunts. Then the Renaissance and the Bible and all of that came. But the first thing that came was misinformation. Okay? And that's kind of where we are now. But there is hope in this, that we are now we know how to use the printing press well, right? That we have put in structures in place, we have put in regulations in place, we have put in systems in place where we know how to use this technology for good. And there are going to be mishaps, and it is much faster and easier to spread misinformation than to promote quality and welfare for everyone. And I think so it will take time, but because even if you look at social media, it has bad, but it has also helped, right? So there is going to be where over time we learn how to regulate, how to act as a society and start to use it better. So if you go way back in history beyond social media and look at how we have learned to use the technology better, there is hope that we will be able to do this better as well.
All right, if we're using the printing press as the example and how the history played out there, I'll mark the year maybe 2200 as that's when we'll get it figured out.
Yes, then we will figure this out.
All right, one more question. Yes, here in the front.
So thinking of the chain value perspective, so one concrete example I could think of is Anthropic versus OpenAI.
Mm-hmm.
So Anthropic has a very more or less clear policy with regard to the usage of the customer data, whereas OpenAI clearly say that they are using it. Yet it's OpenAI who has the most share of the market in terms of users, like 500. They claim 500 million.
Yes.
As opposed to Anthropic. So how do you explain this paradoxical reality with what the ethics, infusion of ethics is supposed to bring in terms of value to the business?
I think it's
So the question is, using Anthropic versus OpenAI as an example, and the differences in policies between the two, and the difference in user base with OpenAI getting more and earlier adoption, how does that example sit with what we're discussing here?
So the two things I would say is, the first is I do view us as, we are in like where the Netscape was in the web browser stage of the internet with AI right now, right? So OpenAI is doing well early, but many times, like a good second or third follower can take over the market too. So we still don't know. I'm still holding to see where the market shakes out. So so that's one. And the other is, where the biggest challenge that we face is this thing about social proof. I think that's where with OpenAI there's a lot more adoption of the product, and it has created this social proof, which is helping it, right? So for other models to pick up, it needs to either leverage their current base and show how they are better in providing the helping consumers, but the install base is difficult to overcome in these type of models where there are network effects. So there is a lot of winner take all happening in these markets, and that's why you see the judges and the courts now looking at search. So they are like 20 years back, they're finally looking at, okay, this is the dominant player, we need to break it and all that. So that maybe we learn from that and stop some of these winner take all markets from forming again. I think that is necessary for these things. Just, you're right, it's a real important point you're bringing in terms of saying that just this is not sufficient, right? You would need some amount of regulation to ensure that the good players also have a fair chance.
Okay, let's thank Raj one more time for his talk. We now have a short break in the schedule. We will be reconvening at 10:20 in this auditorium, auditorium 5, 4, and 3. We'll have concurrent talks running for the rest of the day.